ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه وبركاته عليه. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله تبارك وتعالى وأحسن الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. As we continue in the chapter of Kitab al-Nikah and Bulugh al-Maram by the illustrious Greek scholar al-Hafiz Ahmad ibn Ali ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah rahmatun wasi'ah. And this tremendous chapter we've been covering for the past month and a half, which we're almost finished, where there's only a couple of hadith left in this chapter. And after we finish, we probably will go back a little bit in order to cover the other important ahadith in regards to the matter of nikah. We stopped at the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, this hadith in which you will find the country and the land that we live in totally are in opposition and in contrast to what this hadith calls the women to be in confirmation with and conformity with. This is the hadith of Ibn Umar, as we started last week, where the Prophet ﷺ said, بِأَنَّ النَّبِيُّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم لَعَنَ الْوَاصِلَ وَالْمُسْتَوْصِلَةَ وَالْوَاشِمَةَ وَالْمُسْتَوْشِمَةَ. That the Prophet ﷺ, that he cursed the women who had tattoos put on their bodies, and also, the one who puts tattoos on the bodies of women, and also those women that seek to get it done. And also likewise, al-wasila, the woman who puts the weave or the fake hair inside of the side of the head or the hair of the woman, and also the women who seek to get it done. We said this was the hadith in which we started and inaugurated with last week in the previous lesson. And this is what we'll give further details in regards to certain things that needs more clarity. Insha'Allah bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. We said al-Hafiz ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah rahmatu wasi'ah, that he mentioned in regards to this matter that the reason for why this hadith was put in the chapter, which shows the tremendous depth in his fiqh rahimahullah, you'll find the reason in which he put this hadith in the chapter of nikah. We said last week the reason for this hadith being put in the chapter, because the mafhum al-mukhalafa, or the opposite of understanding the hadith, meaning that which is in the bounds in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made permissible for the women, that those boundaries which necessitates in contrast to the hadith is that the woman should decorate herself. It is obligatory, and that she should do that to the best of her ability to put forth her utmost effort in decorating herself for her husband. So you find that hadith is in regards to cursing these women and likewise these men that do these acts. So it's not the women, so the hadith is not exclusively only for the women, fahasab, and that's it. Rather, also the men fall under the la'na min bab al-awla, that the men falling under the curse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for one who does this is for all the more reason. So we said in the last week's class that this hadith, you will find that the fiqh in which al-Hafiz ibn Hajar why he put this hadith in the chapter, it goes against it's in contrast to what you would think. He said that the Prophet ﷺ cursed the women who do these acts. Basically, he's trying to show the women that leave these affairs off, but what is other than that, then do it in order to decorate for your husband. That's why Al-Hafiz put this in the chapter, to show that a woman is supposed to decorate herself, and we said that was what? Also, our Shaykh Zayd ibn Hadi al-Madkhali rahimahullah, وَضَاعَفَ اللَّهُ فِي مَثُوبَتِهِ, what he also mentioned in the chapter. What's the reason for this chapter being put inside of Kitab al-Nikah? And as Al-Hafiz al-Hakami said in his poetry, he said, يَنْبَغِي لِلْمَرْءِ لِأَنْ الْمَرْءُ تَزْدَانِ لِلزَّوْجِ فِيمَا الْمَرْءُ تَزْدَانِ لِلزَّوْجِ بِمَا لَمْ يَنْهَى عَنْهُ الشَّرْعُ فِيمَا حَكَمًا. As he said in his poetry, rahimahullah, that he said that a woman should decorate herself for her husband. That the woman تزدان يعني تتخذ زينة. المرأة تزدان للزوج بما لم ينهى عنه الشرع فيما حكم. كالفلج للسن والوصل للشعر والنمص للوجه وقش البشر. So we'll cover all that inshallah again. Okay. Huh? You found it? No. So Al-Hafiz al-Hakami said that the woman should decorate herself for her husband. And this is something that she should do, and it will allow the love to be maintained between the two spouses. And it will cause the love to develop more, and it will also remain. And it will cause them to draw close to each other even more. And we said it's not just for the woman's side, and it's applicable for her side. Rather, the husband likewise should decorate himself for the wife. And try to do everything he can to make his appearance look appealing to her and decorate himself for her to the best of his ability. So we said, Ya ma'ashal ikhwa, and those who are listening, we said that the Prophet ﷺ cursed the one who does these acts. So the one who does what is in the boundaries of Islam in order to decorate himself, then this is what is requested. We said that during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and likewise in these days and times, as you know, as Aisha radiallahu anha ardaha, that she says that the women are decorated by their what? By their sha'r, but they decorated by their hair. And that the men are decorated by their liha, by their beards. The decoration for a man is his beard. And the decoration for the woman is her what? Is her hair. So the Prophet ﷺ here, especially during the time of the Sahabiyat and before Islam, or the Prophet ﷺ was sent the revelation, that the women used to brag and they used to show off their hair. Which is in these days and times you'll find that the women what? They love to make and they love to adorn their hair. And they like to make their hair look appealing and beautiful to the one who's looking at it. So during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, or during the time before the revelations had came, in order to nullify this affair of Jahiliyyah, because from the affairs of Jahiliyyah was what everyone? That the women used to put also likewise fake hair inside of their heads in the times of Jahiliyyah in order to extend the length of it, to extend the length of her hair, to make it look more appealing. So during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, during the occasion, there's a hadith, the authority of Asma binti Abi Bakr. She was talked about, he says, جاءت امرأة إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقالت يا رسول الله. He says, there was a woman, إنه قد أصابها حصبة فتمزق شعرها أفأصلها. Listen to this context. On the authority of Asma bint Abi Bakr radiallahu anha ardaha, on the occasion of why this hadith was mentioned, and look into the context of the hadith. As it says on the authority of Asma bint Abi Bakr radiallahu anha ardaha, he said that a woman, امرأة جاءت إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال لها يا رسول الله إنه هناك امرأة إنه قد أصابها حصبة. He said, verily there's a woman that she was afflicted by a sickness which is called حصبة. She said, فَتَمَزَّقَ شَعْرُهَا, that her hair had fell out or became worn out or became torn. Can I put some extra hair in her head? That's fake. Can I put some extra hair in her head? That's fake. So the Prophet ﷺ upon that mentioned this hadith. لَعْنَ اللَّهِ الْوَاشِمَةَ الْوَاصِلَةَ وَالْمُسْتَوْصِلَةَ وَالْوَاشِمَةَ وَالْمُسْتَوْشِمَةَ. That the Prophet ﷺ had one curse. He said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala curses the woman who what everyone? The woman who gets these tattoos, who puts the tattoos on the body, and also likewise that weaves to the end of the narrations and mentions. All these ahadith, we'll mention inshallah binillah, all of them are in the Sahihain. All of them are in the Sahihain in the Bukhari and Muslim, except that which is in the Musnad Imam Ahmad, which is a couple, in which I'll clarify once it comes inshallah, which narrations in Musnad Imam Ahmad, which narrations in the Sahihain. The one of Asma bint Abi Bakr, that hadith is in the Sahihain. It's in al-Bukhari and Muslim. There's another narration on the authority Ibn Umar, that the Prophet ﷺ has said, لَعْنَ الرَّسُولُ صلى الله عليه وسلم الْوَاصِلَةَ وَالْمُسْتَوْصِلَةَ وَالْوَاشِمَةَ وَالْمُسْتَوْشِمَةَ. That the Prophet ﷺ cursed al-wasila, the woman who puts the weaves in the other woman's hair, and the one who gets it done, and the one who puts the tattoos on the bodies, and the one who seeks to get it done. There's another narration on the authority Ibn Mas'ud, radiyallahu anhu ardah, Ibn Ummi Abd, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had described him. Ibn Ummi Abd, that the one who read the Quran, as it was unzil, as it was revealed, was Ibn Ummi Abd, and he meant by that Ibn Mas'ud. When Ibn Mas'ud had recited the Quran to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then he mentioned that ayah in which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, فَكَيْفَ إِذَا جِئْنَا بِكُمْ عَلَى هَؤُلَاءِ فَكَيْفَ إِذَا جِئْنَا بِكَ عَلَى هَؤُلَاءِ شَهِيدًا. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, حَسْبُك, and he started crying. He said that the Prophet ﷺ had read the ayah which is in Surah An-Nisa, وَجِئْنَا بِكَ عَلَى هَؤُلَاءِ شَهِيدًا. Alhamdulillah, I just corrected myself. That the Prophet, Allah Ta'ala says in his book, he says, for how will the people be? He said, when we bring you as a witness over the what? Over the people. And the Prophet ﷺ heard that from Ibn Ummi Abd, which is Ibn Mas'ud, and he started crying. So, Ibn Ummi Abd Ibn Mas'ud talked about this hadith, which is in regards to the ayah, which is in Surah An-Nisa, where Allah Ta'ala says in his book about the plot of shaitan. And the plot of shaitan, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, is mentioned in numerous ayat and in various ayat. From them is the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, وَإِن يَدْعُونَ إِلَّا إِنَاثًا وَإِن يَدْعُونَ إِلَّا شَيْطَانًا مَرِيدًا لَعْنَهُ اللَّهُ وَقَالَ لَا أَتَّخِذَنَّ مِنْ عِبَادِكَ نَصِيبًا مَفْرُوضًا وَلَا آمُرَنَّهُمْ وَلَا أُضِلَّنَّهُمْ وَلَا أُمَنِّيَنَّهُمْ وَلَا آمُرَنَّهُمْ فَلَا يُبَتِّكُنَّ آذَانَ الْأَنْعَامِ وَلَا آمُرَنَّهُمْ فَلَا يُغَيِّرُنَّ خَلْقَ اللَّهِ وَمَنْ يَتَّخِذِ الشَّيْطَانَ وَلِيًّا مِنْ دُونِ اللَّهِ فَقَدْ خَسِرَ خُسْرَانًا مُبِينًا يَعِدُهُمْ وَيُمَنِّيهِمْ وَمَا يَعِدُهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ إِلَّا غُرُورًا أُولَٰئِكَ مَأْوَاهُمْ جَهَنَّمَ وَلَا يَجِدُونَ عَنْهَا مَحِيصًا. That ayah where Allah Ta'ala talked about the plot of shaitan. All these affairs of the women falling into weaves and tattoos, all of it is because they're trying to complete the aspect where Allah Ta'ala perfected His creation, and one, following it up with either coming with these fake type of hair and weaves, and also likewise tattoos, in order to complete the khalq, in order to complete the creation. As if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not perfect it, and it needed to be what? Something added to it in order to perfect it or complete it. And from that aspect is the reason why the la'in descends upon the person that does this. And all these are affairs in which, like we said, are from the aspects of changing the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فطرة الله التي فطر الناس عليها لا تبديل لخلق الله ذلك الدين القيم ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. As Allah Ta'ala talks about in so many different ayat of the plot of shaitan, and from them is in another ayat where Allah Ta'ala says in His book, the shaitan, it says, لَأَقْعُدَنَّ لَهُمْ صِرَاطَكَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ ثُمَّ لَآتِيَنَّهُمْ من بين أيديهم, Surah Al-A'raf. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book that the shaitan will say, لَأَقْعُدَنَّ لَهُمْ صِرَاطَكَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. Verily, I'm going to sit and lurk and plot and plan and lurk in front of them in the straight path, in your correct path. And the correct path, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, is the tariqah of the monotheism of Allah, which is tawheed, wa kitab, wa sunnah, wa fahm al-sahaba. And trying to take the people away from the haqq is trying to remove them from, number one, Islam, the kitab and the sunnah, and also remove them from the fahm al-sahaba. Also likewise is from the plot of shaitan and taking them away from the straight path. صراطك المستقيم. Listen to the tafsir as it goes on to say, ثم لآتينهم من بين أيديهم ومن خلفهم وعن أيمانهم وعن شمائلهم ولا تجد أكثرهم شاكرين. He said, then I will come to them from in front of them. The tafsir in the ayah, as Muqatil ibn Hayyan mentioned and said, and also Ibn Abbas and other than them, that I will come from in front of them, meaning I will come from them in the aspect of the dunya. Meaning, when I come from them in the aspect of the dunya, meaning أَنَا سَأُرَغِّبُهُمْ فِيهَا. He says, I'm going to decorate it for them. And I'm going to make them want it. Then it says that I will come from them from behind them. It says, when I come from behind them, meaning أَمْرُ آخِرَتِهِمْ, meaning the affairs that they hereafter, meaning I'm going to make them heedless of it. And make them inadvertent of it. So أُرَغِّبُهُمْ عَنْهَا, that I'm going to make them not desire it. Another narration, it says that shaitan comes to a person and says to them that there's no la ba'ath, wala jannah, wala nar, which is from these deviant sects such as the Mu'tazila and other than them, especially the Batiniyah. Those who say that there is no jannah and nar, there is no hell, and there is no paradise, rather it's here on earth. All of that is what shaitan mentions in the ayah, where he says that as far as the hereafter, there's another narration that tafsir says that shaitan comes to the person and says to them, there's no resurrection. And there is no hell and there is no jannah. La ba'ath wala jannah wala nar. There is no resurrection. There is no hell and there is no what? There is no paradise. And all that's from those deviant sects that you see, all of it is the call of shaitan, even from those uqala or the ashab al-uqul as they so-called claim to be, the aqlaniyin. The people of so-called minds and being intellectual or intellectualists, that they claim that there is no paradise, as they even go worse than that to say there is no creator, some of them. And then they will say that hell is here. As you'll find there are deviant sects here in America that call to this type of way and this type of disgusting methodology, saying that hell doesn't exist, nor is there paradise. It's now. It's here on earth with us. All that's from the call of shaitan. Because that's what shaitan said in the ayah. That I'm going to come from in front of them. And we said from in front of them means what, everyone? That he comes from them from the aspects of the dunya. Coming from the aspects of the dunya mean, and سَأُزَيِّنُهَا لَهُمْ وَأُرَغِّبُهُمْ فِيهَا. That I'm going to decorate it for them and I'm going to adorn it for them. And make them desire it. Making them heedless of what's going to come when they die. Then it says, I will come from the side of the right of them, the left of them and the right of them. The right of them, and aymanihim, as we talked about before. He says that I'm going to come from them, from the right of them, as it says in the tafsir of Ibn Abbas, that from the aspect of their hasanat, of their what? Of their good deeds. Meaning from their good deeds, meaning that I'm going to make them lackadaisical in it and not desire to do it. Make them laxed. And make them not desire to do it. And also from the left of them, meaning the sayyi'at. Meaning sa'uraghibuhum fiha. That as far as I'm going to come to them from the left, meaning that the evil actions, I'm going to decorate it for them and make them desire to do it. There's another tafsir also likewise, which is also correct, and which Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Wahhab mentioned in his book, tremendous treatise entitled Qisat Adam ma'a Iblis. The story of Adam with Iblis, in which from our mashayikh who had explained it, gave a commentary of it, was Sheikh Ahmed Sabi'i, Hafidhullah wa ra'ahu, wa ta'ala Allah fi umrihi, bil a'mal as-salihah, where he mentioned and said that also likewise, that I will come from the front of them, behind them, It can also mean that shaitan will say, سَأُشَبِّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ أُمُورَ دِينِهِمْ, that I will make them confused about their religion. I will make them confused about the affairs of their religion. Meaning I will make them think that Salafiyah is what? Is bad. And I will make them think that that which is of deviance is good. I will make them think that Christianity is the haqq. I will make them think also likewise Judaism is the haqq. And I will make them think that Kitab and Sunnah is wicked and evil. And Salafiyah is evil. And you see this being actualized today from all the kuffar who attack Salafiyah and warp it, even though it is the most beautifulest thing. How they make it look like it's the most horrific evil thing. All this is from the plots of shaitan mentioned in the tafsir. What does this have to do with what we're talking about now? Because I'm going to connect it. Where next, you see that's the plot of shaitan. Where he said that you will not find the majority of them thankful. As also Ibn Abbas says, because don't worry everyone, I'm going to connect the dots. As it says in the ayah, وَلَا تَجِدُوا أَكْثَرَهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ. You will never find the majority of them shakirin. Shakirin meaning you will not find لَا تَجِدُوا أَكْثَرَهُمْ مُوَحِّدِينَ. You will not find the majority of them upon the monotheism of Tawheed. That's what shaitan that he said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لَا تَجِدُوا أَكْثَرَهُمْ مُوَحِّدِينَ. You will not find the majority of them to be upon Tawheed. Meaning they will die upon a way of kufr or shirk. They will die in a manner of that which is of something of ideology or millah or religion of ideology or ideology of kufr or a way of kufr or ishraq billahi tabaraka wa ta'ala or being upon shirk, polytheism. That's the type of way the majority of them are going to die upon. And this is what he told Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, which was from his plot. The next plot in which I'm going to connect the dots is in another ayah, which is in Surah An-Nisa, where Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala says in this book, because I'm continuing the whole plot, so we can connect the dots, so we can connect it to the hadith. What the Prophet, Shaitan has said in his book, where Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala said, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about Shaitan in his book, he says, إِن يَدْعُونَ إِلَّا إِنَاثًا وَإِن يَدْعُونَ إِلَّا الشَّيْطَانَ مَرِيدًا لَعْنَهُ اللَّهُ وَقَالَ لَأَتَّخِذَنَّ مِنْ عِبَادِكَ نَصِيبًا مَفْرُوضًا. Verily, I'm going to take from your slaves a tremendous portion. What is that portion? Shaitan, listen to what he says in his book. It says upon the ayah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the ayah about the shaitan, where he says, لَتَّخِذَنَّ مِنْ عِبَادِكَ نَصِيبًا مَفْرُوضًا. He said, وَلَا أُضِلَّنَّهُمْ وَلَا أُمَنِّيَنَّهُمْ وَلَا آمُرَنَّهُمْ فَلَا يُبَتِّكُنَّ آذَانَ الْأَنْعَامِ. He says, I'm going to mislead them from the haqq. Meaning of that which is misleading them and misguiding them from kitab and sunnah and fahm al-sahaba. And what the sahaba were upon. I'm going to mislead them and take them away from that. Make them embrace some other way. And make them desire that. And think it's the haqq. And make it think it's the truth. Then he says, and I'm going to arouse in them false desires. Listen to the tafsir of this ayah. He says, that which is, I'm going to arouse in them false desires or false hopes. Meaning that I'm going to tell them to leave off tawbah. I'm going to tell them for the evil that they do to don't make tawbah. He says, سَأَمُرُهُمْ بِتَرْكِ التَّوْبَةِ. I'm going to tell them to leave off tawbah. And another narration says, we look at Ibn Kathir, he says that I'm going to tell them to keep putting tawbah off. He says, سَأَمُرُنَّهُمْ بِالتَّسْوِيفِ وَالتَّأْخِيرِ. To do it late, to put it off, keep putting it off. وَأَسَغُرُّهُمْ بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. And I'm going to make them amazed and fooled of their own selves. Make them amazed and fooled by their own selves. That's the meaning of لَأُمَنِّيَنَّهُمْ. Then in the other narration it says لَأُمَنِّيَنَّهُمْ وَلَا آمُرَنَّهُمْ. Now this is where comes the hadith, this chapter. وَلَا آمُرَنَّهُمْ فَلِيُبَتِّكُنَّ آذَانَ الْأَنْعَامِ. He said, then I'm going to command them, and they're going to slight the ears of the what? Of the cattle and the animals. From that is what? From that is what the Prophet ﷺ had mentioned and said about those who branded the animals, who brand the animals on their faces. That those who used to walk by the animals, and he's seen that the animals had been abused, and they've been branded in their faces by those who so-called want to put a stamp on them, to make or put a sign on them so they can be distinguished. The Prophet ﷺ said, لَعْنَ اللَّهُ مَنْ يَفْعَلُ هَذَا. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah curses the one who does this to these animals, who brands them on their faces, to show the beauty of Islam that you can't even mistreat an animal or abuse an animal. Then it says in the same context in the ayah, he says, لَأَمُرَنَّ فَلِيُبَتِّكُنَّ آذَانَ الْأَنْعَامِ وَلَأَمُرَنَّهُمْ فَلَيُغَيِّرُنَّ خَلْقَ اللَّهِ. He said, then I'm going to command them and then they're going to change the khalq of Allah. Isn't that applied to the hadith? No. Because from the tafsir of the hadith is the hadith of Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu in that same context of that particular ayah where Allah Ta'ala says this book, فَلَيُغَيِّرُنَّ خَلْقَ اللَّهِ. He says that I'm going to command them and they're going to change the creation of Allah. From the change of the creation of Allah is what Ibn Abbas mentioned. And also other than them. Is firstly, number one, before what we're going to mention here in the hadith, before this hadith here, is the fitrah of Allah. Shaitan is going to change and try to change everyone inwardly and outwardly, both. And from them is the fitrah, the natural disposition of people being born upon tawheed. Ibn Abbas gave the tafsir of to change the creation of Allah. Number one is the fitrah. Is the fitrah, the natural, innate disposition in which the creation was created upon, which is what everyone? Which is the tawheed of Allah, the upright religion, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the other ayah, where He says, فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا لَا تَبْدِيلَ لِخَلْقِ اللَّهِ ذَلِكَ الدِّينُ الْقَيِّمُ ذَاكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His book, that's the fitrah of Allah, which He created all the creation upon. Let it not be any change for the creation of Allah. That is the upright religion. However, the majority of people don't know. طيب, that ayah tells that shaitan, from him changing the creation of Allah, number one is what everyone? He's going to change the fitrah, the natural disposition which everyone was created upon, which is the tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. كل مولود يولد على الفطرة ولكن أبواه يهودانه أو ينصرانه أو يمجسانه. كما تولد البهيمة بهيمة جمعاء فهل يحس منها من جدعاء? As the Prophet ﷺ said in one narration, where he said that every mawlud is born upon the fitrah. And from the fitrah is the tawheed, is the monotheism of Allah. And from the fitrah also is to know that Allah is above the heavens. That's also from the fitrah. Yes. As Sheikh Muhammad Aman al-Jami used to mention, rahimahullah rahmatu wasi'ah, he says if you used to leave a child far away, without any mu'athirat kharijiyyah, without any outside influences, and he was just left there, and he hasn't been influenced by any of this nonsense or corruption of this world, and he was just left there naturally, he would grow up instinctively knowing and naturally knowing that Allah exists. And also likewise, he will also raise his head to the heavens and direct his instinct towards the heavens, knowing instinctively that there's what? Is a deity above him, instinctively, by his natural innate disposition that has not been influenced by any type of outside influences whatsoever. That's also from the fitrah of Allah Ta'ala that shaitan wants to change. Yes. All this is from the fitrah of Allah Ta'ala, as it says in the ayah. As he says in the tafsir, what the Prophet said in the hadith, he says, كل مولود يولد على الفطرة ولكن أبواه يهودانه وينصرانه ويمجسانه. He says that every mawlud is born upon that which is of Islam and the fitrah. However, his parents change it by either making him a Jew or Christian or fire worshiper or a magian or a magician, whatever. He says, كما تولد البهيمة بهيمة جمعاء فهل يحس منها من جدعاء? As it says in the hadith, he says, just as you will find that behemoth, that animal, giving birth to that which is a perfect form when it comes out. He said, do you see anything of it being tampered with when it comes out? Anything change? It's in its perfect form. So that's from the fitrah in which shaitan was to change, which is inwardly in the one's mind, corrupt his heart and his mind. And we know that this country fills our belief system up with a whole bunch of pollutants and disgusting, filthy ideologies and ways That's from also the plot of shaitan. To change you, how your mind, and to change what? Which he change you up inside and destroy you inside. Then he also wants to destroy you outwardly, where it comes in this hadith of Ibn Mas'ud. So the Prophet ﷺ said that Ibn Mas'ud had mentioned and said that Allah ta'ala la'an Allah. So you see how I tied the dots, connected everything in with the whole dars. So he says that Ibn Mas'ud says, la'an Allah al-washimat wal-mustawshimat wal-namisat wal-mutanassimat al-mutafallijat lil-husni المغيرات خلق الله. وقال ابن مسعود في آخر الرواية ما لي أن لا ألعن من لعنه الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم. As it says in the narration of Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu ardah, he said that Allah curses, he says the women that will get tattoos, and the one who puts it on their bodies, and the one who seeks to get it done. And also those women who pluck their eyebrows. And we're going to read what Imam al-Albani mentions in regards to that too. Matter of fact, I'll read it right now. He says, نَتْفُ الْحَوَاجِبُ وَغَيْرِهَا. Listen to what Imam al-Albani mentions in his tremendous book called Adab al-Zifaf. رضي الله رحمه الله رحمة واسعة وجزاه الله عنا وعن المسلمين وعن السنة خير الجزاء وضاعف الله في مثوبته. As he says, Imam al-Albani رحمه الله. He says, ما تفعله بعض النسوة من نتفهن حواجبهن حتى تكون كالقوس أو الهلال يفعلن ذلك تجملا بزعمهن وهذا مما حرمه رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ولعن فاعله بقوله لعن الله الواشمات والمستوشمات والواصلات والنامصات والمتنمصات والمتفلجات للحسن المغيرات خلق الله. Where he says in this book called Adab al-Zifaf, he says, for you'll find that there of the women who pluck their eyebrows, they'll cut them. He says, what you'll find what some of the women do of plucking it from their hawajib. This is hajib, what is an eyebrow? This is eyebrows, right? This is eyelids. These are eyelids, these are eyebrows, right? The eyebrows. He said, من نتفهن حواجبهن من نتفهن عفوان حواجبهن حتى تكون كالقوس. He says, you'll find that they pluck their eyebrows until it's like a qaus, like a bow, or like the shape of the crescent moon. He says they do that out of what? Out of beautification, as they claim. He said this is what the Prophet ﷺ harramahu Rasulullah ﷺ, and he also cursed the one who does it. That Allah Ta'ala says in the Hadith, Allah curses the washimat, wal mustawshimat, wal wasilat, wal namisat, wal mutanamisat, and the narration where it says wal mutafallijat al-husni al-mughayyirat ish khalq Allah. As he said, rahimahullah rahmatu wasi'ah. طيب. So that all shows that what? All of it falls in the narration. And it also says in the last part of ayah, فَلْيُغَيِّرُنَّ خَلْقَ اللَّهِ. So shaitan's plot is to corrupt every human being, inwardly in his belief system and outwardly in his shape and his form. By all of these affairs which are mentioned in these narrations. And then Ibn Mas'ud said, at the end of it, he says, why do not curse the one who the Prophet ﷺ cursed likewise? Also likewise it says in the narration, where in the same ayah, you notice in the end of it, it says, وَلَا أَمْرَنَا فَلْيُغَيِّرُنَّ خَلْقَ اللَّهِ وَمَنْ يَتَّخِذِ الشَّيْطَانَ وَلِيًّا مِنْ دُونِ اللَّهِ فَقَدْ خَسِرَ خُسْرَانًا مُبِينًا يَعِدُهُمْ وَيُمَنِّيهِمْ وَمَا يَعِدُهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ إِلَّا غُرُورًا أُولَٰئِكَ مَأْوَاهُمْ جَهَنَّمُ وَلَا يَجِدُونَ عَنْهَا مَحِيصًا. جيد ممتاز طيب. That you are, he says, that is those who are inhabitants of hell, and you will never find anything, any type of escape, and they will never find any way out or any escape once they're in it. طيب. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala نسأل الله يعافينا وإياكم. طيب. Those ayat, ya ma'ashal ikhwah, all that is to what? To show the plot from shaitan is to change a human being, inwardly and outwardly. And also likewise, that hadith that we just mentioned, which Ibn Mas'ud, that's in the Sahihain. It's in the Sahihain. It's in the Bukhari and Muslim. Both. Now we're going to drift off a little bit and go to where? Go to the Musnad Imam Ahmad. So it's two narrations of Musnad Imam Ahmad, where one narration it says that that from the ways in which destroyed Banu Israel, he says, إِنَّمَا هَلَكَتْ بَنُو إِسْرَائِيل, he says, that which destroyed Israel, Banu Israel, he says, حِينَ اتَّخَذَ نِسَاؤُهُمْ هَذَا وَاتَّخَذَ نِسَاؤُهُمْ هَذِهِ. He says that destroyed Bani Israel, or the women of Islam, the nation of Israel. He said when their women started doing these things. When the women started doing these things. That's in Muslim Imam Ahmad and Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan radiyallahu anhu ardah. Also likewise in Aisha radiyallahu anha. But the Prophet ﷺ had also cursed the one who's called al-Qashira. Al-Qashira. Wal-Maqshura. Wal-Wasila. Wal-Mawsula. Wal-Washima. Wal-Mawshuma. This says one there. Wal-Mawshuma. The Prophet ﷺ has said he cursed the one who's al-Qashira. Al-Qashira. One of the sisters last week gave me the meaning of al-Qashr. Al-Qashr, subhanAllah, I forgot the name of it now again in English. So it's a procedure that the women do, that they tear their layer of their skin off. They tear the layer of their skin off in order to reveal what is underneath. The sister gave, inshallah, she sent it to me and she translated and sent it, and she told me what was the name of it. And the brothers found it on the internet. I forgot the name of it right now. Dermabrasion. Dermabrasion. Dermabrasion, you'll find that certain people, if they're sick, if they have bad acne, they'll tear or they'll shave down the layer of their skin in order to remove the what? The top layer of their skin in order to reveal what's underneath. Some of them will peel it. It was like a type of peel in order to what? In order to reveal what is underneath of the good skin. What's permissible from that, if a person has some type of aib, if he has some type of what? Discrepancy or sickness or illness, that is permissible, we said. What's not permissible, if the woman, is nothing wrong with her, but she's just saying, I just want to enhance my beauty. I want to enhance it. So she'll get that what they call qashr. Qashr is, like we said, to remove the top layer in order to reveal what is underneath. Like I said, it's called, based upon what the sisters told me, it's a deprivation. What's it called again? What did I just say? I just keep forgetting the word. Dermabrasion. Jade. Dermabrasion. So we just said, Ya ma'ashal ikhwah, that is also what's impermissible. It's called qashr. And that's all from what Al-Hafiz mentioned in his poetry. He said he gathered all of those affairs. He says, كَالْفَلْجِ لِلْحُسْنِ وَوَصْفِ الشَّعْرِ وَالنَّمْصُ لِلْوَجْهِ وَقَشْرَ الْبَشَرِ وَقَشْرُ الْبَشَرِ وَالْوَشْرُ وَالْوَشْمُ النَّبِيُّ قَدْ نَهَى عَنْهَا وَزَادَ لَعْنُ مَنْ يَفْعَلُهَا. As he said in his poetry, rahimahullah, where he said, and all those things that are impermissible when a woman wants to decorate herself, he mentioned it and gathered it all in his poetry. He says, كَالْفَلْجِ, and I mentioned this in the last class because we'll need to go over this again because I want to cover other things. He says, كَالْفَلْجِ لِلسِّنِّ, like the women who get their teeth separated. We talked about that, al-falj. كَالْفَلْجِ لِلسِّنِّ وَوَصْلِ الشَّعْرِ, put the weaves in the hair. Then it says, وَوَصْلِ الشَّعْرِ. Then also, النَّمْص لِلْوَجْهِ وَقَشْرُ الْبَشَرِ. Numps is the plucking of the eyebrows. And also, a woman who also, the women need to remember this, also the men who do that to the women, or the women who do that to the other women, meaning that they shape it up for them. They go to the barbershop, and she takes the clippers and does it around, or shapes up her eyebrows, or plucks them, or what have you. They also are what? Fall into the sin and the la'an. You understand, everyone? So all of it. And it says, well, qashrul bashari, what we just mentioned. Dermabrasion. Like we said, but the qa'idah, as we'll mention inshaAllah, we said last week, the qa'idah is, if as Shaykh Uthaymeen, even Majma Shaykh Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he said that the qa'idah, the principle is, if it's to remove, or the intention behind it is to remove a aib, a type of illness, or discrepancy, or sickness, or some type of pain, that's being to remove it, and your qasd, the intention is not for tajammul, meaning that the doctor tells you there's nothing wrong with you. Oh, I just want to get mine, want to enhance my beauty. La. I want to make my chest look a little bit more perky. There's nothing wrong with you. You just want to make it a little bit more perky. La. But however, if we talked about, I gave different examples of this, and I'm going to read what Shaykh Uthaymeen also mentioned. He said, for example, a woman might, let's just say, for example, a woman has a chest it's to the point where it's hard on her back. Like the size is really heavy on her back. And she feels tremendous pain due to the size, or what have you. So here in this instance that he said, that in this particular instance, what everyone, the woman could get her breast reduced in order to remove the what? The pain and also the tension, and also likewise the ailment or the heaviness that's causing a weighing down her back. But if you go to the doctor and the doctor says you don't need it, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just, what do you want to get it done for? I just want to make it more perky looking. La, you fall into the Latin. Why? Because the custom behind it is trying to enhance and trying to what? Trying to change the khalq of Allah and also promote more beauty. And promote and bring out as more beauty. Even though there's nothing wrong with you. You're just looking at probably television or looking at the reality shows and becoming fooled by shaitan. By shaitan making you think there's some type of discrepancy in your body and there's nothing wrong with you. But Shaykh Uthaymeen, I'm going to read the different descriptions that he gives and give examples just to read it quickly so we can be upon bayina. Jayyid. جيد. He says ومن فوائد الحديث أنه لا يجوز للإنسان يغير خلق الله بالتجميل لأن الواشمة والواصلة تغير خلق الله زيادة في الجمال فأما إذا غير خلق الله إزالة للعيب فإن هذا لا بأس به ولا يدخل في النهي مثل لو كان في الإنسان إصبع زائدة فأراد أن يزيلها هل له ذلك؟ نعم لأن هذا عيب ولا حرج فيه ودليل هذا أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أذن للذي قطع أنفه أن يتخذ أنفا من ذهب ومن ذلك أيضا لو كان الإنسان أعلم يعني مشقوق الشفة العليا فأراد أن يجري عملية لضم بعضها إلى بعض فهل يجوز؟ نعم لأن هذا إزالة عيب ومن ذلك لو كان start with the first part. He says from the fawaid of this hadith, it is not permissible for the person to change the creation of Allah by tajmeel, by beautification. By beautification. He says, al-washima wal-wasila, because the al-washima, the one who's doing the tattoos, and the one who's putting the weaves in their hair, they are changing the creation of Allah by increasing or augmenting in what? In beautification. As for the one who changes the creation of Allah by removing a aib, aib is a type of discrepancy or sickness or illness, what have you. This is no problem with it. فَإِنَّ هَذَا لَا بَأْسَ بِهِ. No problem with it. And it does not enter inside the prohibition. Similar to the person who has, for example, an extra finger. He has 6 fingers. He has 6 fingers, for example. He has an extra finger. He says it's permissible for him to what? Remove it. What did he say? Naam. Yes. Yeah, it's like abnormal. What we would consider to be abnormal. Of course, the majority of human beings in the whole dunya is created with what? 5 fingers. طيب. So he says, yes, this is a aib. This is a aib. It's a type of discrepancy. It can be removed. He said, well, la haraja fi, is no problem. He says the dalil, the evidence for that, is that the Prophet ﷺ, what time is it? 1:43? Yes. 60 minutes. So he says, وَدَلِيلُ هَذَا النَّبِيُّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ, that the Prophet ﷺ, he said the evidence for that the man from the Sahaba whose nose was cut off, his nose got cut off, they commanded him to take a nose of gold. And from that also, if a person is also a'lam, this person is what they call a'lam in the Arabic language. It doesn't mean he's a'lam, he's most knowledgeable. No. Here a'lam means mashquq al-shafat al-ulya. He said that is the top part of his lip is torn off, or is torn, or is warped. Like it's some type of ailment, whereas what? It's torn, or up the lip is kind of torn or warped. Mashquq al-shafa al-ulya. The highest part of his lip. You've seen that. I think people have seen certain things. But it's to it, What would you call it? Cliff Pollard, or something like that, you said? Pollitt? Cliff Pollard? Huh? My sisters know. You guys know what I'm talking about. But at any rate, he said that you will find that the lip is what? Has some type of discrepancy in it or an ailment. Is it permissible now to carry out a certain procedure in order to rectify and fix this problem? What do we say? Yes. Why? Because what's intended by it is what, everyone? What's not intended by it is the jameel, beautification. What's intended by it is in order to what? In order to remove the ailment. Ahsant. He says, وَأَرَادَ يُجْرِي عَمَلِيَّةً لِضُمِّ بَعْضِهَا إِلَى بَعْضٍ فَهَلْ يَجُوزُ. He said, yeah. He said, why? Because this is removing an ailment. إِزَالَةُ عَيْبٍ. It's removing an ailment. ومن ذلك لو كان الإنسان أحول فأراد يعدل النظر. Also, for example, if a person was ahwal, meaning if he was cross-eyed, one of his eyes is straight and the other one is looking to the side, and he wanted to get surgery to rectify his eyesight. And we know some people are born like this, cross-eyed, what have you, whatever they call it. He says he wants a person now, he wants to make it straight. Is it permissible? He said yes, because it's removing a what? An ailment. He says, إذن القاعدة. He says, hence, القاعدة عندنا أن تغيير خلق الله. Listen to this very carefully, because I don't want no one to go say, Abdur-Razzaaq could just say, you could go out and you could get such and such done, such and such done, I did not say that. I gave proper details. So no one can say, go out and say, yes, she said I could get my breast reduced and I could get this done. No, I did not say that. The qa'idah is what I'm saying here now. أن تغيير خلق الله بالتجميل لا يجوز. That to change the creation of Allah by beautification is not permissible. So make it clear. وتغيير خلق الله إزالة للعيب جائز. And it is permissible. Excuse me. And that also removing or changing the creation of Allah in order to remove an ailment is permissible. That's the dabit. That's the rule or the principle or the rule. طيب. هل يجوز ربط الأسنان لإصلاح صفها? Now is it permissible to put that tie or what we call braces in order to rectify its what? In order to rectify, I guess, the rank on how the teeth sit. تفصيل ذا إذا كان عيبا فلا بأس. He said the details of that, if it's an ailment in it, or it's crooked and it looks extremely ricocheted or what have you, he said no problem. He said لو فرضنا أن السن طالت فهذا عيب. Let's also say, for example, a person might have a teeth that's extremely long and he wants to have it cut. He said no problem. He says, فَلَا بَتْ أَن يُصَفَّ مَعْ زُمَلَائِهِ, in order for it to be straight along with the rest of them. وَإِذَا كَانَ لَيْسَ عَيْبًا لَكِنْ يُرِيدُ الْإِنسَانَ أَن تَكُونَ أَسْنَانُهُ عَلَى وَجْهٍ أَجْمَلٍ فَإِنَّ هَذَا لَا يَجُوزُ. He said, for this reason we say, why? What's intended by it is to remove the ailment. However, if a person wants to now rectify his teeth in a manner, he wants to enhance and make it more beautiful. There's nothing wrong with his teeth. Just say, I just want to get this done because I feel like I just want to bring out, to have a little bit more enhanced appearance, make it more beautiful or adorned. He said, Tayyib, if it's done in this manner, that is what, everyone? Not permissible. Because the Prophet ﷺ cursed the one who is what they call al-washira, wal-mustawshira, wal-mutafallijat li-husn al-mutafallijat. We already went over the meanings of these last week. He says, not permissible because the Prophet ﷺ cursed the one who is washira, wal-mustawshira. And that's what we talked about last week. We said al-washar. The washar is similar to what they call the what? It's similar to al-falj. Al-falj wal-washar is almost similar. Al-falj is when you take the teeth and separate them. Some of the Arab during the time of the Prophet ﷺ used to be a form of what? Beautification. Especially if a woman had a little gap in the front of her teeth and things of that nature. Some of them would consider, every country and every place has their different types of affairs, what they consider beauty. I'm sure some of the things we have here overseas, they'll think we're crazy. Especially a woman getting a mohawk and things of that nature. A woman getting a mohawk, or things we find what we have strange. And likewise over there, they might do things we find strange. All of it is impermissible according to the boundaries of Islam. That's where you have to stick to the boundaries, and that's it. But as we said, for he says the last things we said, al-washar, or the falj, is to separate the teeth, as we talked about last week, separating it and even carving it with a mibrad. with a mibrad, carving it with a filer, carving it with a filer, carving or shaving it, separating the teeth and then carving it. The washar, we said last week, it's similar to the felj, but the only thing is that you're just carving the teeth down, shaving it down. I guess it's making them thin. And I guess that, and then, some of their times, I guess that was a form of what? Beautification. And like I said, notice Islam came in order to remove all these different things. Because in different countries you'll find they do this. So you'll find there's a text for it. They'll say in America we don't do that. There's other places that might do it. And they'll find it considered what? Beauty. But we said that is what? Is impermissible. And it's changing the khalq of Allah Ta'ala, as we just mentioned. Also likewise, which is from this, also likewise, in which a lot of women do these days, is cutting their hair short. Cutting it short. Now, if it's, we said last week, if the intention behind it is to just remove what they call those dead ends or clipped ends, what they call it, dead ends that women get, that's something different. We're not talking about that. They just saying, for example, there's nothing wrong with her hair. She just goes in the mirror, I want to get a new style because I see so-and-so Rayhana getting this style, so I want to shave the side of my head off and look like her. And even though there's nothing wrong with her hair. You understand? She does that, it's impermissible. Like we talked about before, the Prophet ﷺ prohibited what they call al-qaza'. The Prophet ﷺ prohibited what they call al-qaza'. The qaza' is like the qaza', ya ma'ashal ikhwa, is when a person shaves one side of the head and leaves another side of the hair thicker than the other. That's prohibited for the men and women, both. That the Prophet ﷺ seen a little child walking down the street, not down the street, but he's seen him walking in his path, alayhi salatu wasalam, and he's seen that one side of his hair was longer than the other, that they cut it in that manner. The Prophet ﷺ said either cut it all off or leave it all in the same layer. And then the Prophet ﷺ prohibited what they call the qaza'. The qaza' is when you leave one side of their hair thicker than the other, which is similar to these fades that you see that a lot of Muslims let their children get. All of it is impermissible and is considered falling under what we're talking about now, which is if a person is not careful, it can fall under the la'n of Allah Ta'ala doing these things. And the parents will be responsible. Letting these children get mohawks, letting them get high top fades. All this is impermissible. Letting them get mohawks, high top fades, even if the fade is a little thicker than the other side. All of it is what? Impermissible. Also likewise, what Imam al-Albani mentioned is said of what the women do of changing the khalq of Allah, which opposes the fitrah, is letting their nails grow long. That's also impermissible. That also falls under what we're speaking about right now. And I'll read it for you right quickly, exactly what he mentions. In which they say in these days and times, and they mention in the Arabic language, called a manicure. What they call what? A manicure. He said what they call the chapter, Tadmeem al-Adfari wa italatiha. He says to put the, what they call it? What do you call them when put on the nails? What do they call it? The women, they put the nail polish. Putting the nail polish on the nails and making them long. It's the chapter, Adab al-Zifaf of the great Imam al-Albani, rahimahullah. Listen to what he says. الرابع هذه العادة القبيحة الأخرى التي تسربت من فاجرات أوروبا إلى كثير من المسلمات. He said this is the thing we want to mention about from the adab of being married. You'll find in the beginning of the chapter, Imam al-Albani says that the woman should what? Decorate herself and make herself look appealing and nice to her husband. And keep her body clean, keep her scent smelling good, to the end of it. Then he goes on to speak about this. He says this is an evil affair, an evil ada, evil type of habit that you'll find that has been acquired, or another evil habit which has now sneaked in from the fajirat, from the sinful ones, from the people in Europe or Asia, Uruba. Europe, Jade. He says, which is now erect and creep in a lot of the Muslimat, a lot of the females, from the Muslims. He says, وَهِيَ تَدْمِينُهُنْ لِأَظْفَارِهِنْ بِالصَّمْغِ الْأَحْمَرِ الْمَعْرُوفَ الْيَوْمِ بِمِنَكِيُّر, which is manicure. وَإِطَالَتِهِنْ لِبَعْضِهَا وَقَدْ يَفْعَلُهَا بَعْضُ الشَّبَابِ أَيْضًا. SubhanAllah. He's talking about some of the young boys do it too, and they do. He says, then he goes on to say, وَهِيَ تَدْمِيمُهُنْ, that you'll find that the women that they what? They put their nail polish on their nails, and they'll dye it with red polish, which is known as a manicure, and they'll also grow it long. He says, and this is even, you'll find even some of the boys do it. the young youth, from the boys. He says all of this is from changing the khalq of Allah. The Imam al-Albani. Adab al-Sifaf. So nobody think that Shaykh al-Imam al-Albani. Imam Muhammad Nasir al-Albani. Nobody think that. I'm bringing this for myself. طيب. So he says that all of this is from what, everyone? Changing the creation of Allah. من تغيير لخلق الله. All of it is from changing the creation of Allah. المستلزمة. Listen to this. المستلزم لعن فاعله. So women, be careful about the manicures and the long nails and dyeing them with the red polish and all that nonsense. This is what he says. This is from changing the creation of Allah that necessitates the curse of the one who does it. He says, كما علمت آنفا كما علمت آنفا وهو من التشبه بالكافرات المنهي عنه في أحاديث كثيرة ممنوع من الصرف التي منها قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم ومن تشبه بقوم فهو منهم فإنه أيضا مخالف للفطرة فطرة الله التي فطر الناس عليها لا تبديل لخلق الله. وقد قال صلى الله عليه وسلم الفطرة 5 الاختتان والاستحداد وفي رواية حلق اللعانة وقص الشارب وتقليم الأظفار ونتف الإبط. It's another narration. What he says, he goes on to say, Rahimahullah, Jazahullahu, An Muslimin, Khair Jaza. He said that all this is from changing the creation of Allah, which necessitates the la'in of Allah upon a person, just as I have taught everyone a couple of minutes ago, a couple of moments ago. He says also from resembling the disbelieving women, which has been permissible in so many different narrations, in which the Prophet ﷺ had mentioned and said, whoever resembles a people, and he's what? He's from them. And he said, فَإِنَّهُ is also, it's in opposition to the fitrah. So a woman growing her nails and dyeing them with red polish is going against the fitrah of Allah, in which Allah created is what? To pay people upon it. Then he goes on to say, because of the hadith in which you guys all know, the Prophet ﷺ had commanded us to do this, and this is from keeping yourself and maintaining your fitrah, where he said, al-fitrah khams. The fitrah is 5. That a person gets circumcised, and also likewise al-istihdad. And also al-istihdad, which is to cut the certain hairs from different places. From them is the mustache for the men, and the underarms, and things of that nature. Or short, not cutting it all off, because just shortening the mustache, also cutting off the what? And also in another narration, cutting off the hairs of the private part. Cutting off the hairs of what? The private part, or around the private part. Then also says shortening the mustache, and also shortening the nails. That's the mawdu'u shahid. It's the point of reference that we're talking about now. What the Prophet ﷺ say? What is from the fitrah? To shorten the nails. So if you shorten it, so you're growing it long is what? It's against the fitrah. And it also falls into the what, everyone? The la'an, because it's considered what? Changing the creation of Allah. And also he said, natf al-ibt, and also to remove the hair from the armpits. Then it says in one narration of Anas ibn Malik, وقت لنا في رواية وقت لنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في قص الشارب وتقليم الأظفار ونتف الإبط وحلق اللعانة أن لا نترك أكثر من 40 ليلة. Also says in the narration that the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم gave us a specific time for these matters. On the hadith of Anas رضي الله عنه, he says وَوَقَّتَ لَنَا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, as far as cutting our mustache and also shortening our nails and removing the hairs from our armpits and also the hairs from around the private part, and that we do not leave it off no more than what? 40 nights. So a woman growing her nails for 3 or 4, 5, 6 months, don't you think you're going against the fitrah the Prophet ﷺ commanded in this hadith? Understand? Not only are you doing it, but you're decorating with something that's in opposition by putting red manicure over it, or red, what they call, what is it, nail polish. طيب. So that is from the different types of what? Affairs we just mentioned. And also likewise, Al-Hafiz Al-Hakimi said in the last part of his poetry, where he said also likewise, and this is impermissible likewise, as he says. He says, وَقَدْ صَحَّ عَنْهُ لَعْنَ مَنْ تَرَجَّلَ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ وَخَيْرُ وقد صح عنه اللعن من ترجل من النساء والعكس عن خير الملأ. That's what he said. Rahimahullah rahmatullahi. That he said of that which is of, also impermissible, falls under the creation of changing the creation of Allah, when it cures the la'na of Allah upon a person. He says in the last part, those women who imitate men, and also those women or those men who imitate women. And there's two narrations of the Prophet ﷺ had talked about this. That the Prophet ﷺ said, "In the Nabi ﷺ la'ana al-mutashabbihina min al-rijali bin nisa'i, wal mutashabbihina min al-nisa'i bi bir-rijal." That the Prophet ﷺ cursed the women who imitate what? Men, and cursed the men who what? Imitate women. Then also the Prophet ﷺ la'ana Rasulullah ﷺ al-mukhannithin min al-rijali والمترجلات من النساء وقال أخرجوهم من بيوتكم فأخرج النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فلانا وأخرج عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه فلانا. But the Prophet ﷺ had mentioned this in another narration. The Prophet ﷺ cursed the one who's mukhannithin min al-rijal, meaning those men who try to have those feminine type of movements like a woman, a feminine type of movements like a woman, and also those women who have those manly type of movements from the women, or the manly type movements from the women who do this. And that's all incurs the la'in of Allah to bring with the ta'ala upon a person, because it's considered what, everyone? It's from changing the creation of Allah. Right, everyone? Tayyib. Says in the last part of the narration, the Prophet ﷺ said that he what? أَخْرِجُوهُمْ مِنْ بُيُوتِكُمْ. Cast them out from your houses. Does the Prophet ﷺ have what? Removed a woman from his house. He removed a woman from a house that was doing this. And during the time of al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu, that he had removed a man that was what? Doing these type of things where he's imitating a what? A woman. Now it says in the narration, it says, أَخْرَجَ فُلَانًا. Matter of fact, you put check in me. I'm about to check it now. Look at it. Look at it for me. The hadith. The Prophet ﷺ says that, مُخَنِّثِينَ. Just put that in there. مُخَنِّثِينَ. لَعْنَ الرَّسُولُ صلى الله عليه وسلم مُخَنِّثِينَ مِنَ الرِّجَالِ وَالْمُتَرَجِّلَاتِ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ. Read up. جيد. طيب. There's another last thing I wanted to read, but inshallah the time now is over. Been talking now for an hour. So inshallah we'll stop here. Any questions from our sisters or our brothers? What's this? Oh, I forgot to say that. I forgot to read that. Al-Imam Ibn Uthaymeen, I'm glad the sister sent this question to me. She said, some Muslim women say the hadith does not apply to the weave or fake hair that is man-made. Wrong. Plastic type weave that looks like hair. Wrong. Does the fake hair referred to, I'm not talking to these, this is not towards the sister, I'm talking to those who told you this. Does the fake hair referred to in the hadith include all types of fake hair, regardless of what it's made out of? Please discuss the permissibility of yarn too, inshallah. Jayyid. And I'll read, because I like to bring kalam of Ahl Ilm instead of my own kalam. Yes. No, I got something from the ulama. Oh, which one? Which was hadith Aisha? Yeah, you're right. It is hadith. Bukhari. I'm gonna check it, inshallah. طيب. So to answer this question, sister, alhamdulillah, I found it. Shaykh Uthaymeen mentioned, it says, listen to this. الصحيح, it says, فإن قال قائل الوصل ذكرتم أن من العلماء من قال بعمومه سواء بشعر أو بغير شعر ومنهم من قال بخصوص الشعر فأي القولين الصح. It says there's a question. It says, did you mention that from applying weaves and from the ulama that they say that it's general, whether it be hair whether it be hair or real hair or other than real hair. And there's some people that say that it's exclusively just real hair. It's exclusively only real hair being put inside of a woman. Basically, person taking real hair or someone else's real hair and putting it in the woman's hair. Or is it general for fake hair that's been man-made in the factory and put in a woman's head? Or is it for both? The real hair being put in a woman's head or the fake hair being put in a woman's head? طيب, he says this, نقول الصحيح إذا وصلته المرأة بشعر فلا شك أنه داخل في الحديث. If a woman that she makes it or extends her hair, then no doubt she falls inside the meaning of the hadith. This is what Shaykh Uthaymeen clearly says. And I want everybody to hear this. أو شعر صناعي. How you translate that, Adam? Hisham? Artificial hair. So we all got the same understanding here. شعر صناعي. Artificial hair. Listen to what Shaykh Uthaymeen says. فهو داخل في الحديث. Then it applies to the what? To the hadith. لأن من رآه يظن أنه شعر طبيعي. He says because the person that sees it, they think that it's natural hair. وأما من وصلته بشيء آخر يتبين أنه ليس بشعر فإن هذا لا يدخل في الحديث. مثل أن تعقد على شعرها شيئا يتدلى وينزل يتدلى وينزل فهذا لا بأس به ولا حرج فيه لأنه لا يدخل في الحديث ولا يحصل به التغيير لخلق الله والنساء الآن يستعملن مثل هذا على رؤوسهن خرقا ورداء وأشياء كثيرة تتدلى هذه لا تدخل في الحديث. So inshallah this answers the question. Inshallah that suffices of giving details enough. Alhamdulillah, the ulama have sufficed me, so I don't bring my own speech, and I try to bring their kalam as much as I can, instead of using my own. He said, لِأَنَّ مَنْ رَآهُ يَظُنَّ أَنَّهُ شَعْرٌ طَبِيعِي. Because the one who sees it, they think it's natural hair. He says, as for the woman who now extends it with something else, where it's made clearly indistinct, it's not her hair. This does not enter inside of the hadith. Just listen very carefully. For example, that she ties something on her head that hangs off. For example, the women who takes, like some of those women that's from the African culture, that they take a scarf and they'll tie it as a form of decoration. They'll take a scarf and tie it on their heads and make it like long, and then have it hanging down on the side and make it like a look on the top of their heads like a scarf. Tie it up, like a little bit of her hair might be on the sides hanging out. I'm not talking outside. I'm talking inside the house. Because this is impermissible, of course, outside the house. I'm talking about how she decorates herself in the house with her husband. So she ties it like this, and then the back part is probably hanging off. It's clearly distinct. That's not her what? It's not her hair. It's not her hair. So he says, like for example, she ties something on her head, for example, and she said it hangs down. He said, there's no problem with this, no problem. This does not what coincide the hadith. Nor does it take place by it, change the creation of Allah. He said, for women these days, they use this to this day. You'll see them put cloths on their head, or a robe, or a form of decoration, like a cloth, or a cloak, or something. They'll tie it out of decoration. He said, that's no problem with that. That doesn't comply to that. Apply to what? The hadith. He says, for now, he says, another question he's asked. What about a baruka? Al-baruka, if you look in Mu'jam al-Wasit, when I checked it, a baruka is like a clip. And I think it has in it like some fake hair coming out of it, but it's like tied. Some of them are tied and it doesn't have hair extending out of it, but some of it is like a circle bundle, like wrapped. That's like a baruka. Women could just take it and usually could just clip it on their head and that's it. You understand? Women know what I'm talking about. Inshallah, you know what I'm speaking about. They said, some of the ulama say, this is the person asking the question. He said, they say it's haram, some of them say it isn't. When they ask the Shaykh, what is your answer to this? Is this a form of what is fake hair? He says, وَأَنَّهَا لَمْ تَصِلْ وَإِنَّمَا لَبِسَتْ قُبَّعًا لَهَا شَعْرٌ يَتَدَلَّى. He said, rather, however, she's wearing like something like in the form of a hat. That is what it's like hair is just hanging down. He said, وَلَكِنْ الظَّاهِرِ, he said, that which is apparent to me, أنها تدخل في الوصل. He said that this also enters inside of what? Extending the hair. لأنها إذا لبست هذا على رأسها وتدل الشعر في هذه الباروكة فإن الناظر عليه يظنه شعرا. He said, why? He said, because the person, she wears this upon her head, on the top of her head, and her hair is hanging down, and this baruka. He said, for the person looking, thinks it's her hair. He's looking at it and he thinks it's her hair. He says, if I ask for, وَأَمَّا مَنْ قَالَ لَيْسَتْ بِوَصْلٍ لِأَنَّهُ لَمْ يَتَّصِلْ بِشَعْرِ الرَّأْسِ في قال العبرة بالمعاني وفي عهد الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم لم تعرف هذه الباروكة لكن يعرف الوصل الربط أما الآن فعرفت والذي يراها فالآن أما الآن فعرفت والذي يراها يقول إنها رأس حقيقي تماما فتدخل في الحديث. So he says, as for the one who says that is what من قال ليس بوصل. He said it's not extending the hair because it's not connected to the hair actually, totally, where it's been molded in or cut in or what have you. It's just a clip or what have you has been put there. He said, no, we say that the ibrah was took in consideration is the meaning. And that's as during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, this baruka wasn't even known. He says, however, لكن يعرف الوصل. However, we know that this is a type of what? Wasl. It's a type of trying to make a form of extension. Extending the hair, making it appear, look, an appearance, a fake type of appearance. He says, as for now, it's known. And the person who sees it, they think it's real hair. They think it's real hair. Exactly. So it corresponds, it coincides with the hadith. So inshallah, I answered the sister's question by saying that it covers for whether it's real hair put in the head or whether it's what? Fake hair. Has anyone heard any information on the yarn? I'm gonna really do a study on it. I've been asked that maybe 10 times, even when I was in Philadelphia. Now the women started putting yarn in their hair. Yarn. And I have to check that. Allahu A'lam. Is it permissible to wear fingernail polish during the times of menses? As the ulama mentioned that the fingernail polish, if it prevents the wudu from getting inside, like we said, if it gets to, this is what I heard and I don't know if it's true or not. So you guys or the sisters have to investigate. They said there's a polish or some type of, I don't know if it's true, and I'm still trying to figure out how. But they say it's a form of polish that it does penetrate the nails, whether the wudu water does get inside the nails. I'm trying to figure out how. If you don't mind me asking, I'm trying to figure out, scratch my head. I was trying to figure out, was the liquid that goes under the nail and it sticks without the polish being removed? I'm trying to figure it out. But they said that there's a polish that they can wear during the time of a mense so they can keep the actual polish on, and it does not it does allow the water to what? Get inside. So Allahu A'lam. I don't know about that. But I know that during the time for the mense for the woman, if she wants to wear that around the house, if it's clear, what have you, and if she wants to put some henna on it or what have you, I know that is permissible. But as far as when her mense is off and she has to pray her prayers, I don't see how she can do that. I don't see how she can do that. Yeah, letting them grow long and polishing it. Letting them grow long and polishing it. Who is Zed? Who's that? Explanation of Zed. Zed al-Mustaqna'? So that comes in my mind is Zed al-Mustaqna'. There is no harm in connecting like thread made of wool or silk. I say that al-Quran. This is basically, I'm assuming this comes from Shaykh Uthaymeen's Zed al-Mustaqna'. There is no harm in connecting the hair with coralmill, a yarn-like thread made of wool or silk. I say that how you pronounce it? Coralmill, I'm assuming. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is what the woman binds in her hair, consisting of silk or anything else that is not hair. Taken Fatawa, Muhammad Shahir Uthaymeen. When are we going to the danger of the beauty salon? The prohibition applies specifically to attaching hair. There's nothing wrong with attaching wool, pieces of cloth, and so on. Allahu alam. Jayid, if that's what the Shaykh says, then khalas. But inshallah, I'll check it. Jazakallah khair. Tafadhal. What you talking about for the beard? I don't know no narration that allows a person, for a man, to cut anything of his beard. Anything. Whatsoever.
Based on what you just mentioned, you might okay, it's permissible for the woman, but basically,
For what I know, the narration of the Prophet ﷺ, if that's just in Sahih, that he said that, أطلق اللحى, just leave the liha to grow. Just leave the liha to grow. I don't know where any narration that said it's impermissible for the woman to what? That says if she wants to take a little bit from her hair, due to the fact of those split ends, that it's not permissible, and due to the fact that the asl is that for everything of mu'amalat is that it's al-hil. Everything in the asl, the origin of everything of pertaining to the matters of dealings with our, how do you want to translate mu'amalat? That which is of dealings and pertaining to affairs of fiqh. The origin of it is that's pan halal, until there's a narration that says that we could do otherwise. So that's what we know, that as far as the women that want to do that they can do that. As far as what I know, and what I even asked years ago, I asked when I was overseas, permissible for women to cut, like they have like damaged, extended hairs. Can they cut it? I forgot, I asked that question years ago. They said if it's just clipping the dead ends on it, there's no problem. To make their hair grow longer. Because the intent is trying to get their hair to grow more beautiful and long. Man, I can't remember what I asked. That was years ago. I can't remember right now. But taqwallah, I got to. Tafadhal. You could do it there. You could do it there. Just do your prayer. Just do the regular janazah prayer. That's it. Only time you do salat al-ghaib is when you can't get the body. If the body can't be attained whatsoever, or it's lost. Or the body couldn't be attained whatsoever. Nobody knows. Nobody could attain the body. They tried the body. The Muslims could get the body. They totally took it. It's gone. Or nobody knows where it is. It might die in the river or in the ocean. Of course, you're not going to attain the body whatsoever. Or it's lost, like we said. You can't attain it. It's the only time you do salat al-ghaib. But other than that, if you know where the body is, just go to the waiting room. You could do the salat al-janazah right there. Mm-hmm. Say it again. The child? The child? The child doesn't have to pray. Does the son? Oh, you mean you? Oh, no! Don't go into church. Don't go into church. Just pray. Do it in the waiting room. Go to the burial site. You can go to the burial site for your mother or your parent. Just don't pray. Go into church. No, absolutely not. At the church? No, absolutely not. No. No, whatsoever. You got a big cross hanging up right behind you while you're talking? طيب. But as far as you could go to the waiting room and the funeral room, because I know that the waiting room is usually in the funeral home. Go to there, do the prayer. Now, if you want to, like I said, janazah, if you want to go see your mother buried, you can do that. But you can't make dua for her, though. If she died in the state of kufr. Oh, she died. She Muslim. Oh, khalas. Yeah, she can do it. Yeah, of course. Make dua for her, istighfar for her, everything. As far as what? As far as what when he buried his going to the janazah of the kafir. You just remind Muhammad Arafat Muhammad, he told me that years ago. Yeah. He told me that a couple of questions. Of course, somebody asked me that same question, and I asked him like 4 or 5 years. Matter of fact, it was 6 years ago. I asked him that. He said that Hadith Ali ibn Abi Talib, that he buried was his father. Yeah, you're right. I was thinking of something. Yeah.